Hello and welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because honestly, we're looking at a set of numbers that completely blew my mind. We're going to unpack some brand new data from June 2026, and it reveals a truly shocking story about energy costs across the African continent. If you've ever wondered just how much your geography dictates your cost of living, well, you are definitely in the right place.
Okay, let's dive right into this staggering continental divide. On one end of the spectrum, motorists in Libya are paying just 43 South African cents for a single liter of petrol. Meanwhile, all the way on the other end, South African motorists are paying an average of R28.06 for a liter of 95 unleaded inland petrol. It's the exact same commodity, right? It's being used for the exact same purpose, but the price tag? Fundamentally different.
And the sheer scale of that multiplier is what's truly staggering. 65. South Africans are currently paying more than 65 times the price paid by motorists in Libya. It's almost hard to wrap your head around, isn't it? We aren't talking about a margin of a few percentage points here. We are talking about a totally different economic universe when it comes to transportation and energy costs.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the Great Fuel Divide. Second, Africa's cheapest fuel markets. Third, the 50-liter reality check. Fourth, why the gap exists. And finally, the strategic advantage.
Starting off with Section 1, the Great Fuel Divide, looking at the data from June 2026.
The foundation for our explainer today comes from the June 2026 global petrol prices data, which is sourced from a recent spotlight report by the Billionaire Room. Now, fuel prices are universally recognized as one of the most critical indicators of economic competitiveness. They influence literally everything, from how much it costs to transport goods across the country, to baseline inflation, to business profitability, and ultimately your everyday household spending. And this data brilliantly illustrates that energy affordability across the continent is vastly uneven.
In fact, the report puts it perfectly. To quote them directly, "The gap is extraordinary," highlighting one of the continent's largest fuel affordability disparities. And that disparity is exactly what we are going to measure today. It's not just a quirk of the markets, It is a profound structural divide that shapes the daily lives of millions of people.
Moving right along to Section 2, Africa's cheapest fuel markets and the top rankings.
So this isn't just some simple anomaly between two specific nations. It's an entire continent-wide phenomenon. Looking at the top 10 cheapest markets, Libya leads the pack at a mere 43 rand cents per liter. Following right behind them, Angola and Algeria sit around the 6 rand mark. As you scan down the list through Egypt and Sudan, you can see the prices scaling steadily up, eventually culminating with Ethiopia down in the 10th spot at just over 19 rand.
But if you look closely at that list, you'll probably notice a glaring common denominator. Most of the countries occupying these top positions share a very specific structural trait. They are major oil producers with significant state involvement in fuel pricing. Countries like Libya, Angola, Algeria, Nigeria, Egypt, and Gabon all possess substantial domestic hydrocarbon resources. Which brings us to Section 3, the 50-liter reality check and the actual consumer impact. Statistics are great for data geeks, but let's translate these numbers into a tangible consumer reality. Imagine you're pulling up to the pump to fill a standard 50-liter tank. For a motorist in Libya, filling up costs just R21.50. In Angola, it's R294.50. It jumps up to R826 in Nigeria and R953 in Ethiopia. And then we hit South Africa, where that exact same 50-liter tank is going to set you back an average of $1,403.00.
So the stock reality boils down to this number right here, R1,381. That is the exact premium a South African motorist pays over a Libyan motorist simply to drive away with a full 50-liter tank. Over the course of a month or a year, that difference equates to a massive chunk of disposable income that is either freed up or just completely eaten away by energy costs.
On to Section 4, why the gap exists and the policy frameworks behind it. How is this massive price gulf even possible?
Ultimately, what we're looking at is a tale of two opposing policy frameworks. On one side, you have the heavily subsidized systems utilized by major oil producers. And on the exact opposite side, you have the market-linked system utilized by countries like South Africa. Neither approach is inherently right or wrong in a vacuum. They simply reflect different sovereign strategies, natural resource availability, and the structural economic realities of those nations.
Let's break down these subsidized systems first. As the June 2026 data points out, governments in countries with significant hydrocarbon resources just have far greater flexibility. They use significant state intervention to leverage their domestic oil production. By heavily subsidizing the cost at the pump, these states essentially absorb the shock of global crude market fluctuations. They artificially lower prices to intentionally shield their citizens and their businesses from global energy volatility.
Now, contrast that with the market-linked system seen in South Africa. The crucial takeaway here is that this system is transparent, but it is highly exposed. Pricing is tied directly to the whims of international oil markets and global crude fluctuations. Furthermore, because oil is traded internationally in US dollars, motorists are heavily exposed to exchange rate and currency volatility. On top of that base cost, the R28.06 price tag includes local domestic taxes, government levies, and complex distribution costs. The consumer basically pays the true market rate plus the administrative overhead.
And finally, Section 5, the strategic advantage and the macroeconomic benefits. Understanding how these prices are formulated is one thing, but what does it actually mean for the future of these nations? Well, as the Billionaire Room report highlights, affordable fuel has macroeconomic implications that echo far beyond just the individual motorist. Cheap energy creates a cascading series of benefits across an entire economy. It drastically reduces transport expenses. It supports heavy industrial activity. It improves the logistics of moving agricultural goods from the farm to your table. And crucially, keeping these baseline costs low helps a nation control and suppress overall inflation. Countries that can supply low-cost fuel to their markets are granting themselves a massive competitive advantage. For businesses and policymakers alike, the strategic value of energy security, localized refining capacity, and efficient fuel supply chains really cannot be overstated. It makes a nation wildly attractive for manufacturing and retail investment, simply because the fundamental cost of doing business, moving things, and making things is kept artificially low.
Which brings us to the final provocative thought posed by the source material. As Africa's economic transformation continues to accelerate at a rapid pace, will access to affordable and reliable energy become the defining advantage that separates the continent's fastest-growing economies from the rest? It's a fascinating question about the future of African economics, and it's definitely one we will keep watching. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.